Hello, Theodor.
Good morning.
You are, in addition to being a parliament member of Romania, you are also a philosopher and a philosophical practitioner. And at home you have a school of various topics, including philosophy. So I'm interested to hear about the philosophy part, and especially the philosophical practice part of your activity in your school.
Yes, you mentioned that I was a member of parliament already for 6 years, and I think that the only decent politicians are the failed politicians. Plato is the first example that comes to everybody's mind, or Thucydides as well. And it has something to do with what I'm doing, in the sense that I see the limits of political action, and that having a school is a meta-political action, a detour, a very useful detour, that creates a community around the school that disseminates certain values in the Romanian society. So I started this project a year and a half ago, almost 2 years. I teach philosophy, among other things, rhetoric, diplomacy, philosophy, various courses in philosophy and in different formats. Lectures, seminars, dialogues, one-to-one tutorials, so it's a broad spectrum. I mentioned rhetoric, and we should remember that the first school in Athens is not the school of Plato, it's the school of Isocrates, the great rhetorician, but he called himself a philosopher. So in this example, I see something very inspiring in the example of Isocrates, teaching together rhetoric and philosophy, because rhetoric has also a philosophical dimension. It's about arguments, about knowing yourself, about knowing how to adapt to different contexts. And it's something that for the moment has been very, very successful. It's one of those courses that I do all the time.
What about activity that is more personal, where people, your students, think about themselves or try to improve themselves in everyday life, perhaps even?
These are one-to-one tutorials that came from their demand. It was not my initial idea. For example, I had a course on Seneca, and one of the students asked me to go more deeper into the Stoics, and it's what we do. And of course, he tries to adapt to existential problems, because Stoicism really addresses life and practice. So this is one example.
So what happened?
Yeah, we read texts together. He has to read in advance and to come up with questions that we try to go deeper into them. Sometimes he comes with more personal questions, but it's very much, how can I say, trying to adapt to what his interests are, various readings. We don't read only Stoics. I recommended him other books, a novel, or let's look into Plutarch, for example, to see someone who lives Stoic principles. I'm thinking of Cato the Younger, for example. And Cato the Younger, although he didn't write anything, he was considered a philosopher.
Can you tell us a little bit more, to the extent that privacy allows, his attempts or thoughts about using the texts that you are reading together, applying them to his own life?
Yes, one of the issues that he was interested in was anger. And of course, Seneca has things to do about anger. Not only Seneca, but also Plutarch has a very interesting essay on anger, and this is one example. Or anxiety as well.
So he's using the thoughts of Seneca and maybe exercises?
Not only Seneca, Epictetus very much. We started with Seneca because I did this course on Seneca, but then we went deeper into Stoicism. Epictetus very much really concentrated on it. That's a banality. I mean, Epictetus is obviously the one to be applied to
because
this
he has
kind
so
of
many
things.
exercises.
Absolutely, yes. Another example that comes to my mind is a course on pathologies of power that I did. It's a topic that I'm very much interested in, and I can say I'm in a way an expert on it. One of the participants wanted to deepen this issue, this problematic. I mean, it's a very rich problematic, and it has also practical dimension. There is, I mean, related to this area of preoccupation, I did also, I proposed also a course on Plutarch and another one on virtue as I called it the dharma of the politician. So they are in this area of ethics, political ethics, and the ethics of the use of power in all situations, not only in politics, also in academia or in business, of course. So this is a theme that I think can be very much developed. Whenever you have power, you may realize that it is a chance and at the same time a danger. And this is a track on which I want to go further with the people who come to my courses and then with individuals as well. Now, the principle of what I'm doing is that I first have I don't go from tutorials to courses, but the other way around. So I have courses that are like a very familiar and friendly thing. The atmosphere is friendly because it's at home. Mm-hmm. They are guests. They are not clients. They are not students. They are guests in my home. And this creates trust. And since there is this atmosphere of trust and friendship, I would even say, then we can go further and deepen. And actually, the individual tutorials are not the most important thing. They are only a means to deepen some issues and then to build to build a community around this school. This school that I created is meant to be a community of friends, of guests around of the house and around the house.
A bit like Greek Academy.
That's very ambitious to say. Of course, there is a resemblance with the Garden of Epicurus, in the sense that friendship was the central value. Of course, I don't own a garden. I own a house, and in this house we have these activities, and it's very much like a salon in the 18th century French Enlightenment. Part of this also.
Yeah. Theodor, that sounds very interesting. Can you elaborate a little bit, tell us a little bit about the dynamics of learning in this salon or this Greek academy?
So how it really works.
And how people interact, what happens there?
It depends very much on the course. The course on rhetoric is very interactive. So I give the philosophy of rhetoric, the theoretical part with Aristotle, Plato, Cicero and Quintilian and other authors, but then it's very much about practice. People make a speech and then the others give feedback, or they argue against each other, and again the others give feedback. And I insist very much on the fact that rhetoric, speaking in public, of which so many people are afraid, is also a question of knowing yourself and knowing your audience, understanding the audience. So this is one type of course where the interaction is very strong. The course in diplomacy is less interactive because I have to tell them things as a former ambassador, as someone who has been thinking about these issues. course on pathologies of power was also based to some extent on the experiences of the participants, because the participants were people who had something to do with the exercise of power, either as CEOs. One was a CEO of a big transportation company, another one was a human resource director, another one was a brain brain hunter or
brain surgeon?
No. The brain who is doing brain hunting. I mean, trying to get executive search. Exactly. So there are people who had some contact with this, and so they could speak about this and give examples of how the exercise of power affects us. And it's, I think, a pretty normal thing that the exercise of power somehow erodes our sense of reality, and how we can counteract this, and to what extent, for example, Marcus Aurelius gives some tips to this.
Well, let me ask you one last question. Those people who come to you, what is their aim? Why are they coming to this place?
Very good question. And who they are? They are mostly people between late 20s and early 50s. So they are adults, active adults. Most of them, not all of them. Some are students. We had also some high school students and also older people. And I very much believe that it's good to mix different ages. But the statistics, it shows that most of them are active adults. And adult learning is something very special. I mean, adults learn in a different way. They need to participate more. And their aim is to complete what they have done in university. They don't see this form of education as something that gives them a degree, but something that enriches their life, that helps them to make their personality, so to say, round, to search, and here I will use your word, to seek something. What do they seek? They seek a rounding up of their personality, a complement to what they are doing. They are active people, lawyers, managers, IT people, all kinds of active people who want this moment of reflection, reflection on themselves, reflection on philosophical issues, or just learning something new. I'm not the only one to teach in this small academy. I have also a historian and also an expert on geopolitics. So there are several things. Now I talked a little bit more about myself, but I'm not the only one, and I'm not meant to remain alone in this project. But we want to keep it small. I don't want to transform this in an industry. I want to keep it small because the main aim is to create a community, ideally of friends. Of course, it's impossible. We had already around 450 people in 1 year and a half. But out of these 450 people, at least 50 are permanent participants. They come back and they help us really with this project. It's also their project. It's not only mine.
This is absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
And I can only hope that we would have more such centers in our group. Thank you.